Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today. Now, usually, this is the part where we'd walk through a whole agenda. But honestly, today, we are just skipping the formalities. We're diving straight into Acadian Asset Management's second quarter 2026 earnings report because, well, the numbers show some absolutely massive systematic growth, and we really need to unpack exactly how they pulled this off.
Okay, let's jump right into this. $232.7 billion. That is Acadian's total assets under management at the close of Q2 2026. And to really put that into perspective for you, that's a 54% increase from just 1 year ago, which immediately begs this huge question. How does a systematic management firm, one that's currently navigating its 40th year of operation, suddenly hit the absolute highest AUM in its entire history? I mean, we're not talking about a scrappy startup here. This is a veteran firm catching a massive, massive second wind. And to really wrap your head around the sheer velocity of Acadian's current growth, you just have to look at this one figure, 170%. That is their year-over-year increase in U.S. GAAP net income. So we aren't just talking about a lucky quarterly bump or some minor market correction working in their favor. No, we are looking at a fundamental shift in profitability that is, quite frankly, redefining their financial trajectory for the entire decade.
Let's actually ground these numbers for a second and listen to how Acadian's CEO, Kelly Young, frames this exact moment. She says, as we progress through our 40th year, we have continued to see organic growth, reflecting strength and momentum in the business, driven by long-term outperformance. And that really hits the nail on the head regarding their core identity. As a leading systematic manager since the 80s, they rely entirely on quantitative, data-driven strategies. Kelly Young is making it crystal clear here that this deeply methodical process is exactly what allows them to not just survive, but capture serious alpha, even through the most complex, turbulent market cycles we've seen.
Now, just as a really quick refresher before we get too deep into the financial weeds, Acadian leans heavily on economic net income, or ENI, to evaluate their underlying performance. By stripping out those pesky non-cash expenses, this metric just gives us a much clearer, far more accurate picture of the actual true cash-generating power of the firm.
So looking directly at that balance sheet, the year-over-year increases from Q2 of 25 to Q2 of 26 are just striking. I mean, net income is up 170%, earnings per share up 171%, and that economic net income we literally just talked about, that's up an incredible 107%, reaching $47.5 million. Even adjusted EBITDA jumped 79%. So across the entire board here, we are seeing substantial high double-digit and triple-digit percentage increases.
Which naturally brings us to what I think is the most important question of the day. Where exactly is all this money actually coming from? Like, what is happening down in the operational engine room of Acadian to drive this kind of explosive revenue surge right now?
Well, the answer lies in some seriously sustained momentum. Acadian has now achieved 10 consecutive quarters of positive net flows. Think about that. They aren't just holding on to the clients they have, they're aggressively accumulating fresh capital at a rapid pace. And it all culminated in a massive $4.3 billion flowing into their funds in just this past quarter alone. To put that $4.3 billion inflow into a bit more perspective, it represents a highly impressive 9% annualized organic growth rate for the whole firm. And look, this isn't just random money looking for a quick home in a bull market. The data shows us that these tremendous inflows are being driven specifically by their enhanced and extension equity strategies. So highly sophisticated clients are actively, purposefully seeking out these very specific systematic products.
But why? Why are these massive institutional clients pouring billions into Acadian's systematic process? Well, it all comes down to alpha. Institutional clients are deploying their capital here because Acadian strategies consistently deliver value that sits well above standard benchmark indices. It is the literal, mathematical proof that their management approach is actually working.
When you look at their major strategy group assets outperforming their benchmarks, you see categories like global equity, emerging markets equity, small cap, and enhanced equity posting 100% and 96% outperformance metrics. Let that sink in. That means in some of these categories, literally every single dollar managed beat its benchmark. And we're not talking about a short-term fluke here. This is sustained over 3-year, 5-year, and even 10-year timelines.
So here is the real so what of all of this. An astounding 96% of Acadian strategies beat their respective benchmarks over a 10-year period. This staggering long-term reliability across entirely different geographies, completely different asset classes, and market caps is exactly why Acadian is just an absolute magnet for capital right now. In a financial world full of uncertainty and shifting trends, they are providing genuine, systematic, mathematical consistency.
And when you consolidate all of that firm-wide investment performance into a single overarching metric, you get this incredibly powerful number, plus 4.3%. That is their 5-year annualized return in excess of the benchmark, on a revenue-weighted basis. It's the ultimate proof that their systematic alpha generation engine is operating at peak levels. They aren't just matching the broader market, they are significantly beating it, year after year after year.
Now, obviously, generating all that alpha is fantastic for the clients, but how does that actually translate for the business itself? Let's pivot the narrative a bit to see how this top-line investment success cascades right down into the company's operational efficiency. We are talking about operating leverage here, literally turning alpha into margin expansion.
Back in Q2 of 2025, Acadian's economic net income operating margin was sitting at a very healthy 30.7%. But fast forward just 1 year to Q2 2026, and that margin has exploded to 40.3%. That is a massive 959 basis point jump. The core driving force, operating leverage. They brought in a record $176.5 million in quarterly recurring management fees. Because their assets under management surged so wildly, their top-line revenue just vastly outpaced their expense growth. And they did this even while continuing to invest heavily in new technology, infrastructure, and top-tier talent.
Of course, a well-oiled machine doesn't just hoard all its cash, right? It actively rewards the people backing it. Here is exactly how Acadian's operational and financial excellence paid off for shareholders during this record-breaking quarter. First, they cleaned up their balance sheet by paying down seasonal revolver borrowings. Second, they maintained a really robust $65 million cash balance. And finally, they returned capital directly to their shareholders by repurchasing over $10 million worth of common stock, all while declaring a very steady quarterly dividend of 10 cents per share. This right here, this is what pristine, confident capital management actually looks like.
We have seen the incredible 40-year momentum. We've seen the record-breaking $232.7 billion in AUM, the massive margin expansion, and these truly consistent, decade-long outperformance metrics. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative question to ponder today. In an era characterized by so much unpredictable economic turbulence, has Acadian's systematic, data-driven approach permanently cracked the code to navigating complex market cycles? I gotta say, it is certainly hard to argue with the numbers we've seen today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped you structure your understanding of Acadian's phenomenal quarter, and as always, I highly encourage you to keep questioning the data.